The Shepherd of the Hills is a 1941 film starring John Wayne, Harey, Carey, and Betty Field, and was directed by Henry Hathaway. It's the story of a family of Ozark moonshiners whose world is forever changed by the arrival of a mysterious man. This movie is the somewhat rare case for me of watching a John Wayne film that I don't remember watching before. And now that I've seen it, I can't believe it's taken me this long to get around to it. It had a couple of notable firsts. It was the first of 6 collaborations between John Wayne and Henry Hathaway, which includes North to Alaska, The Sons of Katie Elder, and culminating with True Grit, for which John Wayne finally won an Oscar, and it was John Wayne's first film in color. The movie was based on the 1907 novel of the same name by Harold Bell Wright, and while I haven't read it, it sounds like there are vast differences between this film and its source material. But the story that is presented here is really fascinating, and it's a movie that is quite surprising in its subtlety, and very well constructed in its world building. These people that live in the mountains, far removed from civilization, are so unique. Their manner of speaking takes some time to get accustomed to, and the abundance of superstitions, rumors, and legends that permeate this place feel as though you've stumbled onto a different planet. The audience is given this feeling immediately, as is the character of Daniel Howard, played by Harey Carey, who becomes the titular Shepherd of the Hills. Before I go any further, I really don't want to give too much away for anyone that hasn't seen this movie, because a large part of the joy of watching it is discovering who this character is, who all of them are, really, so I'll try to dig into this film without completely spoiling it. But Daniel Howard is a man that has come to the mountains to buy land and move there. He has some money, he's extremely helpful and kind to all he meets, but that's all we know about him, as does everyone he encounters. And his cityfied ways are just as foreign to these mountain folk as they are to him. Harey Carey is an incredible actor, and he brings such a warm, gentle presence to the movie with some secrets that haunt him. And that unreserved kindness that he shows is in stark contrast to the suspicion and wariness that he's met with by some of the other characters. One of whom is young Matt Matthews, played by John Wayne. This movie was only 2 years after Stagecoach, and it always surprises me how much older and mature he began to look so soon after that landmark film. But his performance is so measured and filled with dread and almost loathing for where his life is leading. Again, without giving too much away, he's vowed to kill someone. And that purpose he's given himself, or was pushed upon him, has caused his life to stagnate, never allowing himself the possibility of happiness in the future. There's a powerful scene at his mother's graveside that brings to mind his future work in She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. And it's interesting to compare those scenes, one with the mournful grief of a son missing his mother, and the other, an aging man still trying to keep his connection to his dead wife. Seeing John Wayne and Harey Carey on screen together is such a treat, as both of them were John Ford's Western star of choice at one point in time, and while neither of them worked together under Ford, this was their first time sharing the screen. They would work together several more times during the 40s, but this movie, and in particular the scene where they go fishing together, feels a little like a passing of the torch from the silent Western star to the man who would go on to define the Western genre forever. Betty Field plays Sammy Lane, a young woman who may or may not be smitten with young Matt, even if her attentions go unnoticed by him, and is also the first person to befriend Mr. Howitt upon his arrival. Her character is responsible for much of the nearly indecipherable dialogue at times, but it's such a fleshed out character that you don't even mind if you can't always make out what she's getting at. Her lack of knowledge of the outside world leads to some humorous scenes like the one where she tries to figure out what writing a check means. Her longing for Matt never dips into sentimental speeches, but instead leaves her true feelings almost unreadable while still serving as Howitt and the audience's guide through this strange world. The supporting cast is filled with character actor greats, and could almost fill out an It's a Wonderful Life castmate bingo card. You've got both of George Bailey's parents, Bert the cop, and even the toll house keeper who's frightened by Clarence, also known as Samuel S. Hines, Beulah Bondi, Ward Bond, and Tom Fadden, respectively. Beulah Bondi is a real standout as John Wayne's bitter, vengeful aunt, who runs roughshod over her own husband as well as the rest of her family. Ward Bond is always great, and he and John Wayne naturally get into a fantastic brawl. I think that may have been a contractual obligation. If those two men were in the same movie, at least in the 1940s, they have to get into a fistfight. You also got John Quaylen, surprisingly not doing a Swedish accent, and Marjorie Main, playing another recipient of Mr. Howitt's good nature. The movie is absolutely gorgeously shot. There are two eras that might be my favorites in terms of the general look of movies at that time. And those are late 30s, early 40s Technicolor, and 1960s widescreen black and white cinematography. Both techniques can, when used well, really elevate the productions. In the early days of Technicolor, you could see the joy that certain filmmakers took in using this newer process to put images on the screen that you couldn't achieve without it. And in the 60s, it was the tail end of regular usage of black and white. But preserving that style for the sake of reviving that noirish look and paired with the expanded widescreen and crisp clarity gave you amazing imagery. But in The Shepherd of the Hills, the color is used to perfection. Not only the exteriors, which take these green hills and mountain vistas and make it seem as though you're right there, but also the interiors. The scene where Harry Carey is visiting the cabin at Moaning Meadow is so beautiful. When he's crouched by the fireplace with this reddish glow cast over half his face, I don't know how else to describe it. It's stunning. The cinematography too during the climactic confrontation, evoking a Western gunfight, or during the fire scene. The movie was shot over 80 years ago, but that fire still looks as fearsome and dangerous as if you were watching it happen right in front of you. But all of that wouldn't have the power that it does if it weren't for the Christian themes that fill this movie. Daniel Howitt is called a good shepherd, and his desire to help others, expecting nothing in return, makes for a wonderful message. While he's not portrayed as performing actual miracles, he tends to a wounded man, saves a young girl from death, pays for the operation to restore an old woman's sight. Just the example he sets causes the sales of moonshine in the area to decrease dramatically. There are themes of forgiveness, redemption, the dangers of holding a grudge or hating others, and how that can affect everyone around you. I could go on. Why I love this so much is because throughout Hollywood history, Christians and Christian attitudes have often been treated with skepticism at best or mocked outright, and it's only gotten worse. So watching a movie like this is so refreshing. It may not say things outright, but the implications are crystal clear, and I thought it was pretty special. The ending of the movie does wrap up certain plot elements very neatly and quickly while leaving others unexplained. But I didn't really mind that. From what I've heard, the movie may have had something of a troubled production with various cuts and reshoots, so the ending may have been a result of that. But regardless, it doesn't diminish everything that this film does well. It's a lesser-known John Wayne movie, but if you get the chance to see it, I definitely recommend checking it out. A beautiful-looking film, filled with familiar faces, and a great story too. What more can I say? Thanks very much for watching. Adios for now.